Hi, and welcome back to the North American Supply Chain Summit. We have another exciting talk for you today. It's all about multimodal strategies and the importance of network flexibility, and it's something that 2020 has taught us all about network flexibility and being flexible with our supply chain. My name's Kevin Hill. I'm joined by Sean Stewart. He's the President and Managing Director in North America for CEVA Logistics. How are you doing today, Sean?
I'm great. Thank you.
Uh, Good. So we all saw tremendous challenges in 2020, but it's been a valuable opportunity for everyone to really rethink their supply chain efficiencies, just in time versus just in case, and really develop more of plan A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, because we've all kind of had to go back to the playbooks and do that over the last, 6, 8, 9 months now. So with that said, how did SEVA navigate through the waters of 2020?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, first and foremost, our strategy first was to take care of our employees and keep them safe. But the second to that is, if you would have asked me in 2019, Sean, can you guys operate with working more than half of your staff from a home environment? I would have told you absolutely not. So the second most important thing for us was, how do we continue to be effective for our customers and keep our teammates working remotely, because it's something we've never done before. So that was the two most biggest things for us. That was uncharted waters, if you will.
What was the biggest learning process of having everyone go remote? What were some of the things that really surprised you?
I think the one thing most, and nothing against our staff at all, but I just didn't think it was possible. I didn't think you could be as productive, when you're at home and you've got your family and kids, and because the whole family was working from home. So I'm just very, very impressed with what we've been able to do, and still stay productive and not miss a beat. Not only for just the CEVA Logistics Group, but also our customers. I actually feel like we're more connected now than ever before, because we're all working and used to doing this video virtual life.
Yeah, definitely. We all have great insights in our coworkers and our customers and our vendors' personal space of their homes, right? We've all been on Zoom calls and Google Meet or whatever platform you use doing these virtual calls. What were some of the challenges that happens when you send everyone home at once?
Well, the biggest challenge is the logistics industry. Although it's advanced over several years of becoming more and more paperless, it is not a paperless business. And so, how do we take more paper out of the daily operations, and only keep those vital operators within the branches, and get everybody else working remote in a more digital way? And so that was the biggest challenge: is how fast can we get more digitally focused into something that was more paperwork and file management of yesterday before COVID.
Yeah, I mean, it's really changed the thoughts and accelerated the trends of digitization in the supply chain, certainly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so Stevens, and you've seen quite a few natural disasters, a lot of those on more of a regional basis. How does COVID compare to that? It seems like it was a natural disaster on a global scale, right?
Yeah, so we've obviously had them in different regions around the world, and when it's isolated just to a certain area, you have much more opportunities to scale around that pretty quickly. But when you take the pandemic of COVID, where it was a fast wash from China through Europe into North and South America, uh, everything was shutting down. So where you thought you had had a plan of diversion, that plan went away quickly. So that's the biggest difference, is because this is the first time, I think, in many of our own histories of a pandemic, there's nowhere to go. And so now you got to start looking at other alternatives versus just shifting to another region of the world.
And talking about multi-mode and switching mode, one of those modes that had the biggest impact to it, especially at the beginning and still lingering on, is the airline industry. I mean, domestically, we're seeing flights being cut at one point 90%, now it's 75%. If you look at the passengers, TSA check-throughs, domestic-wise, we're sitting somewhere between 35 and 40% of the number of passengers in 2020 as compared to 2019. But that really constrained air supply, for those passenger routes, especially international. How did yourself and Siva kind of navigate those waters?
Yeah, when you look at the total air freight capacity globally, there's a significant uh, need on those passenger aircraft to cargo holes. And so when those passenger flights came down, not just domestically, but from a global connection, um, it took out significant capacity. So for us, you basically had two options for our customers. You either got to put it more on ocean, which absolutely happened, and it's still a major impact today. And the second was you had to get into the charter freighter network uh, as much as possible. So we were all fighting for the same capacity in that charter network, but we were very quick to buy as many charters as possible. Some of those short term for specific customer needs, but more so we bought them long term just to keep up because we did not see this pandemic coming out anytime soon. And so it was a very bold and risky move by Siva, but one that we're very happy that we took because it's absolutely worked to our advantage.
Yeah, going through that, bold and risky moves. I mean, I think that really encapsulates 2020 and what businesses have had to do. It's what logistics businesses have to do, like Siva. It's what shipper customers have to do in different industries is make bold and risky moves out of necessity. How do you see that playing out?
I see it continuing to play out. Once all the charter freighters were pretty much sucked up, we had to go to Plan B. So Plan B was working with the traditional passenger airlines to get some of their planes back in the air and convince them to flip them to conversion freighters. So what does that mean? That means basically they pull the seats out of the aircraft and we're filling those planes that were formerly passenger aircraft now into converted freighters, and that worked very well for us, especially out of Europe. There wasn't as many cargo freighters like there is coming out of North Asia into North America, so we secured those out of three key markets in Europe to keep the supply chain going. That being Amsterdam, London, UK, and Frankfurt, Germany.
Yeah, one of the benefits of natural disasters, not that they should have a lot of benefits, is that it makes everyone work together. Everyone's kind of on the same page. Is that what you're seeing in 2020 when you're working with, the airline industry, your customers as well, everyone kind of pitching in and pulling on the same rope?
Yeah, I would say, there's always a positive out of a negative. And what I would say is, I think the world holistically became more humble, humility. We all were fighting a major pandemic that was scary for all of us. So there was a much more humanistic side of relationships between the customer, the carriers, the third-party logistics providers like ourselves, to where we needed each other. We had to be very thoughtful, trust, maybe sometimes unearned, to get assistance to ensure that we could conquer this and keep trade moving around the world.
You're exactly right. There's always got to be positives coming out of negatives, or you're going to spiral out of control, certainly. When we switch back to the multimodal strategies, we're talking about air, we're talking about the overflow and the spillover effect, and kind of the shift to ocean and maritime, which has been stressed with capacity as well. March and April, there's a lot of blank sailings, a lot of cancellations, and now they can't get enough boats in the water, or ships in the water, I should say, to meet demand. How's that been going for SIVA, and what are you seeing out there in the market?
Yeah, so the key is, certain customers were able to change their supply chain, change their manufacturing timelines, their just-in-time inventory, and obviously they had to pay more on ocean because when the capacity is what it is, the rates are going to go up. So it became a market, and it's still there today, that you got to pay to get on the vessels. But outside of that, the air freight market is coming back slowly. So there's pretty much steady state. But I would say between getting the capacity at the right rates on the ocean freight, and then what you still need on an expedited level, then moves into there's a fast boat service from mainland China into LA Long Beach that a lot of people have diverted their containers to, and then secondarily the air freight need and filling all the capacity that we can on air freight for our customers.
And that brings up a good point too. How advantageous is it for SIVA to have kind of in-house capabilities to do end-to-end transactions like that, and be able to switch via modes and be really truly multimodal?
Well, I would say that the biggest thing for SIVA is we have extensive expedited ground networks around the world. And our ability to, when we say air freight capacity came back, it only came back in certain what we call OD pairs, or origin and destination pairs. So having a very robust ground network to say the planes are only going to come into Chicago, in and out of Chicago, or in and out of LA mainly, some JFK, then you've got to have a pretty robust ground network to get those goods to the other areas of major import gateways, i.e. in Atlanta, Dallas, et cetera. You have to use your ground network to reposition that. And without that, people struggled to get their cargo into the United States and then get it distributed in time to make the inductions of the customers.
Yeah, you definitely have to have creative solutions and a lot of flexibility, flexibility in your supply chain to get the products to the right place at the right time, so they can be purchased by the end consumer. We've seen a lot of mix shift of spending here in the U.S. coming from the services side into tangible products that they get shipped around the world. And we're kind of in a blitz. We're still kind of in that blitz of products moving around, and it comes with building flexibility. You really have to build flexibility in your supply chain and your logistics network to take full advantage of that. What are you seeing in the market of everyone adapting to that flexibility?
It's very unique for every customer. It depends on what they're doing, and how they want to do it. If you look at our customers, they had a plan A and they even had a plan B. But as you stated earlier, they didn't have a C, D, and E. And so things are still changing. And so what you have to be able to uniquely understand where are they going, and how do we whiteboard, literally virtually, how to get there from the traditional. And sometimes, especially I think for in the logistics business, people's supply chain has been set up the way it's been set up for many, many years. So then all of a sudden, in a panic, trying to think outside the box and do something differently for our customers, they're too close to it. So being able to really partner with their service provider like SIVA Logistics to allow us to help them think outside the box. We don't want to tell them how to run their business, but obviously we have the data that tells them what all their options are to think differently for them.
So one of the trends that we have seen in 2020, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, is that mix shift of spending from travel, leisure, entertainment, live events, or are pretty well done. Restaurants are running at a fraction of their capacity. So what we've seen is a huge shift to e-commerce. And we see that in the stress in the airline or the air cargo market and also the maritime market. What are you seeing? What kind of trends are you seeing that are surprising in e-commerce right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, most of our very large consumer and retail customers have had a very tough year. But it's interesting, those consumer retail customers that were storefront, you see their stores converting into many e-com distribution centers of today, both open and non-open to customers through the front door. So where you had them maybe 80% of their sales coming by people that went to the stores to buy, and 20% buying online, it's completely 180 on them. So they're fulfilling 80% of their buys through e-commerce and 20% through the front door. There's many of our customers that if you walk into them today, those that are still open, you'll see stacks of boxes behind the checkout counter, and it's because those associates of them are not only working the retail floor, but they're also filling e-com orders. And why that is because their supply chains are not yet changed from fulfilling an e-com DC that they don't have in large enough on that scale, and the inventory is still fulfillment to store versus fulfillment to e-com DC. So it's a very unique environment, and most of those clients are moving heavily now into building out or outsourcing the build out of large e-com facilities to transition them to the new normal after this pandemic.
Yeah, that is a huge trend that we're seeing too. Is that those large big box retailers that that they didn't do too much e-commerce, they didn't put a lot of resources into it. They're scrambling to do that. They're fulfilling it out of the stores. What are some of the challenges that they're going to face as they really build out a supply chain that is adaptable and focuses on e-commerce going into the future?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue that they're going to face is obviously the parcel carrier's capacity. Without it being into a DC where you got mass orders picked per day and able to funnel into a parcel network, there just isn't enough trucking capacity for them to pick it at all their stores and either get it into a parcel network or a U.S. Postal Service network. And so that's going to be the real challenge for them is how do they not only fulfill that order timely out of a store or a lack of having an e-com DC, but also how do they get it dropped off to the parcel carrier to ensure it can get to the customer in time? So that's really what we're seeing today. And many of us are working to try to figure out how to help them with those sweeps and or other alternatives that may be outside of the parcel network because there's just not enough capacity.
And that's a very complex thing. I mean, it's a very complex supply chain that to put in. And if you haven't traditionally been focused on e-commerce as a retailer, you probably need as much help as you can in designing that because there's a lot of built-in redundancies and flexibility that you need to have that you need from scratch, and you probably don't have that knowledge in house. So you certainly don't if you haven't been focused on e-commerce.
That is correct, but it's also saved them. So the e-com has been fantastic to option for them to stay open and stay profitable. So anything that they can do to build out their e-com solutions will drive longevity in the success of those consumer retail customers.
Again, Sean, thank you for your time today. Thank you for coming to the North American Supply Chain Summit and joining us. How does our audience reach out and learn more about CEVA and yourself?
Well, you can hit our website at www.cevalogistics.com, and I'd be more than happy to take on any questions or reach outs on LinkedIn. Our whole team can be reached. We also have a page on LinkedIn for CEVA Logistics.
Great. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir.